Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast. Join your hosts, Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, as they address the real issues in health and wellness for first responders, from physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance. We leave no stone unturned. Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the call. Welcome to another episode of Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast, sponsored by Genesis House and produced by Sweets Productions in Beverly, Mass. And now, here are your hosts, the Podfather Mike Miles and Jersey Ed.
Hey, thanks, Sweets. As always, we are happy to be here and ready and available to help our first responders out there across the country and abroad.
That's right, Mike. I love learning new topics, and I know our listeners do. I can tell by all the emails that we get, and we've been getting a lot of them. Absolutely. And the social media chatter. Social media has been really good, getting the word out for this podcast, as I always say, and always hit those like buttons. Well, Sweets, you can go give us a rundown at the like buttons and
subscribe to YouTube, subscribe on all your podcast catchers. That's your iTunes, your Spotify, Stitcher. iHeartRadio. Look for us, subscribe. You'll get alerts for new episodes.
That's right.
That's Facebook as well. Facebook you can watch live.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's live now. Huh?
Basically, you can't get away from us.
That's right.
Every avenue covered.
Yeah. That's right. So
I am the Podfather, Mike Miles.
And
it's nice to be here.
And I'm Jersey Ed.
Jersey Ed.
We need to introduce ourselves like that a little bit more.
That's right. People don't know who we are. We don't want them confusing us.
They know us on our other podcasts because we get emails and everything. But this is our new endeavor. Not new. It's kind of new now. We've been falling into it, and kind of our producer says we're doing pretty good. So
absolutely, you guys are doing great.
He does a great job too.
He just strokes the talents. He does. Thanks, Sweets.
he strokes.
Got to keep you guys going. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah. Which podcast is this?
Yeah, he gets out here. He's like, "Oh my God, these guys are horrible." Oh God! So what's been going on? It's been a week since I've seen you. How you been?
Things are good. I have no complaints. Just working hard. Got a lot of clients this time of year. Holidays are coming, and being a clinical social worker and somebody that provides help to people with mental health issues and concerns, I find myself very busy this time of year.
Yeah, it gets busy and it gets crazy, and over at Genesis House, I want to thank. We need to thank Taylor and everybody at Genesis House for putting all this together. Melissa and Skylar. Everybody who does all the behind the scenes stuff for us.
Absolutely. Melissa's been really such a huge help to this podcast and even our other podcasts.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She really puts stuff together.
Yeah. And you guys can reach out there and we'll tell you how to do that if you want to, get on the show or have any topics. We'll do all that. But thank you, Genesis House, and we really appreciate this. It gets the word out.
That's correct. And so, Ed, what did you do this weekend? You had something pretty exciting going on down in D.C.
Oh, yeah, it was a couple weekends ago. Yeah. I don't know if I want to bore you guys with podcast stuff, but I learned a lot at this podcast festival that I was in a couple weeks ago. And I actually met a couple first responders there, believe it or not.
Yep.
That are getting into podcasts. And I also met, believe it or not, two people that identified to me as recovering people.
Wow.
So maybe on our other show, on our Friends in Recovery Addiction podcast, we can have them on. One time, but it was a good podcast weekend, and we're trying to learn more so we can get the content out so you guys can listen and learn about the first responders world, so we can bring it to you guys more accurately and keep you guys tuned in to our ugly mugs, because what do you always say, Mike? You have the best.
I have the best face for radio.
That's right.
So I actually hooked up with an old friend of mine. His name is Lee Scazzilli. He's a retired Billerica, Massachusetts police officer, and kind of a real interesting guy. I've been sober a few decades now, 33 years. And when I first got sober,
that's older than me.
Yeah, you were just a baby. And when I first got sober, Lee was very helpful to me. When you're a cop with an alcohol and drug problem. Back in the early 80s, it was kind of difficult, to come forward and get the help I needed. And Lee was sober from alcohol, and he really got me hooked up with some meetings, and he was always there to listen. So I spoke to him yesterday. He owns a business called Police Survival Equipment. It's in Billerica, Mass, and he's had the business for about 20 years. and we haven't spoken for a few years, but we're going to try to have him on as a guest.
That'd be great.
And we're about helping people get the help they need.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy, because not only did he help me, but he's helped hundreds of people, and he's a very humble, knowledgeable, just a guy that just went right at it. He retired and he just never stopped. He just kept helping cops, and everybody that needed the help, they went to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were telling me about him yesterday, and I'm looking forward to having him on the show. Real quick, Mike, I want to go over, remember Brian Casey, one of our first guests? I think he might have been first or second guest.
He wrote a great book, didn't he?
Yeah. Good Cop, Good Cop. If you guys want to, what's that? Oh, the book. Oh, yeah, we have it right here.
That's what we got the producer for, right here.
That's it. So, and this is unscripted, guys. This is just good. We wing it. Good Cop, Good Cop. It's Brian Casey's book. We'll give him a little plug because he did send me a St. Paul police patch.
Yep.
And we've been asking everybody to send us patches. They're starting to roll in now, and we're hanging them up on the wall. You can see we have one up there. That's from Anthony from the last week's show. And now we'll put up Brian's patch and honor him a little bit. So Brian,
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I know he's an avid listener to our show. Mike, he really likes you, Mike. He always talks highly about you.
It's hard not to, Ed. I'm a very likable guy. The Podfather is probably the meat and potatoes of the show.
You are.
And,
yes, you are. That's right.
You are my sidekick, after all.
Jersey Ed is just a sidekick. Just remember that, guys. Don't let me get full of myself here. So, I want to give us a quick podcast. I try to give us a weekly podcast, that we listen to, that I listen to anyways. This one this week that I've been listening to is First Responders Fitness Podcast. Basically, this is a pretty cool one because anybody with ADHD or doesn't want to sit and listen to podcasts too long, it's really short blasts of good fitness knowledge and inspiration. The guy's name is Mark Hillebrand. He's the host, and they're anywhere from 5 to 10 minute kind of blasts of inspiration, especially on fitness. So I really enjoy that one. It's called First Responders Fitness Podcast. I found it on Podbean, so you can probably find it.
Well, you are a physical fitness fanatic, that's for sure.
Well, well, we'll see.
In between our commercials and our breaks, it does push-ups and sit-ups and deep breathing exercises.
That's right. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, kinda, I'm always down there doing something.
Yeah, so. You certainly are, and it's kind of fun to watch.
I do like running, though. That I do.
You do. You're a good runner.
I try. I'm a runner. I don't know about good, but I am a runner, and just don't let these cigars fool you.
That's right.
It's once in a while. It's only when I'm in this show I smoke cigars.
Yeah.
And but running's my passion. Yeah. And the way I got into it, I know Mike likes to tell stories, so I'm going to tell a story.
Tell a story.
The way I got into it was I ended up getting to recovery over a little over 25 years now,
right.
And I worked for a big box store, an orange big box store.
Yeah.
And I was a manager there. And let me tell you, when I was working there, they bred alcoholics in that place.
Yeah.
It was like a perfect place for me to go work.
Like a police department.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So then you get on a pink cloud, you want to help people. So about 6 months into it, a wellness coordinator position came up. And wellness,
right up your alley.
Well, not at the time. At the time, it was not up my alley. But you know what? Recovery brings change. Recovery brings different things into your life, different passions into your life. You don't have to sit behind a bar or be strapped to the drugs. And I said, well, let me try this thing. So now you got to realize this is 25 years ago. So I get a letter in the mail. Now I'm the fitness coordinator. I get a letter in the mail, and it says, come join the 5K run in Bernardsville, New Jersey. I was like, all right, 5K run. What the hell is that? I had no idea. So 25 years ago, there wasn't there wasn't a computer. So we couldn't go on I didn't have one anyways, if there was. So I couldn't go on a computer and find out what a 5K was. Right. So I had to go to the library. If anybody doesn't know what libraries nowadays, well, it's another show. But had to go to the library and figure out what a 5K run was. And I ran that 5K and I fell in love with the art of running. And,
right.
I'll be honest with you. running is my peaceful time, my time to get away. It's my time to be alone with me, with God in my head. And this is not a religious show, but this is what I do. And just kind of debrief and kind of tune out and just understand who I am at that time, you know, and that's why I do it. And I really enjoy running. So,
yeah, my younger day, I was a fanatical about exercise. I used to ride a Schwinn racing bike, and I did about probably 3 days a week. I'd go out and do about 20, 25 miles. And then I would go to a place where I could run the track, push-ups, sit-ups, and make it home. And if I didn't do that at least 3 times a week, I really felt like I was missing out because it kept my head clear. It was my high. It was my new high, you know, and I really enjoyed it. Of course, as you get older, you get kids, you get busy. You know, the running went by the wayside. Walking, just not for me. I wish it was. But I miss the exercise. I miss that quiet time, like you say, you know?
Yeah. Well, our next guest is, he's physically fit because I believe he was in the Army.
Yeah, Andrew Collins.
Yeah, Andrew. Yeah, and you want to give him a little bit of introduction there?
Sure, I'd love to. Andrew Collins, good enough to come on the show.
Absolutely.
He's a U.S. Army combat veteran. He deployed stateside in 2005 to aid in the humanitarian efforts after Hurricane Katrina. Don't put all those words together too close for me here. And twice to Iraq, 2006 to 2007, 2009 to 2010, in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And Andrew, thank you for your service. And how are you today?
Hey, Andrew, welcome to the show.
I'm doing good. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I'm doing really good today. It's a nice, bright, sunny day.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
So, you know, as you said, I was in Hurricane Katrina and then Iraq in 2006 and 2007 and in 2009 and 10. And Hurricane Katrina was kind of where things started getting compounded for me, just because that was in the United States. And that was just it was a weird time as a country and how we responded to that. And, you know, working alongside with other agencies in that area, law enforcement, EMS, etc. And then going overseas in 06, 07, that ended up being a 15-month deployment. And that was kind of when the early stages of ISIS had kind of started in northeastern Baghdad there. And so that was just a very interesting time and experience in my life. I think it was 21, 22, somewhere in there. So, yeah, it was a very, very interesting time in that sense. And then I went back in 2009 and it was like a light switch had been flipped. It was a lot different. You know, there were still some things going on, but it wasn't as intense as it was the previous years. And then I made a decision to get out just because I felt I had some friends that had gotten injured and I felt like it was just my time to kind of leave the service. So I got out and I thought everything was fine. Everything was peachy and roses and I was doing well in school. I started that following year in January of 2011. And in 2012, the wheels kind of came off and found myself kind of in a fight for my life. And through recovery and programs and things like that, I realized it wasn't just what I'd experienced in the military. There was stuff underneath what had happened in the military with what had happened in my childhood. And so once I was able to put all those pieces together, I realized, you know, okay, you know, there's like a complex situation going on here. And I sought help, sought recovery. I'm actually 2 years sober myself as of
Congratulations.
January of this year. So next year will be 2 years. So
all right, congratulations. You can come on our other show.
Right? No, absolutely.
Our addiction podcast.
Yeah, well, and you guys, as you guys know, you know, it's an ebb and flow process. You know, I find myself in situations sometimes where, you know, life sometimes gets the best of you and you kind of get stuck in this situation. So, yeah, I was just blessed and fortunate to meet some of the best or some of the good people along my journey. I went through a program in 2017 called Saber Warrior. That's actually based up there in Ohio. And then they have another kind of group down in Malibu, California. And that was when the light bulb kind of went off in my head that one, my healing was my responsibility, but two, that, you know, I'm not alone. And there are people out there that have been through this at varying degrees, some more than others and some less than others. But I think trauma affects everybody in the same way. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
And that's what fascinated me, Andrew, was the Saber Warrior. You and I met in Boise, Idaho.
Yes.
I believe that's where you're from.
Yeah, well, just outside Boise.
Okay.
It's a lot more grown up than it used to be. So.
Yeah. I got to tell you a quick story about Boise. I've been out there twice at the conference that we met, the First Responders Conference, and I want to give a shout out to Jackie and Sean. They do a great job of those conferences. And I seen you speak out there. I think twice you spoke out there, if I'm not mistaken. And the second time I went up to you, and I was like, I got to talk to him. I got to get him on our show. And I was dressed a little more different. I had a suit on. You were dressed the same. I had a fancy suit on. That's those $1.99 cheap suits, but they look good. But I was with Genesis House. We were supporting the First Responders Conference, and it was a wonderful conference. If anybody can get out to the First Responders Conference, Andrew was a big part of making it very successful. And I was fascinated by his story about life and everything, and the SAW program, the Save a Warrior program. And it just kind of it boggles my mind that there's a program out there like Save a Warrior. I know we can get a little bit more into your story, but talk a little about the Save a Warrior and how it saved you and what it can do for other folks and all that.
Yeah, so Save a Warrior has been around since 2012, so a little over 7 years. Jake Clark is the founder of the program. He actually walked out of an MBA program at Pepperdine in Southern California because he said he was going to solve the veteran suicide epidemic. And so he started it out of the trunk of his car on a shoestring budget, and here we are 7 years later, and they're doing amazing things. I think we've now put a little over 900 guys through the seats, both veteran first responders, so that includes dispatch, fire, EMS, corrections, etc. And they've only lost 4 to suicide. I mean, I don't want to lose anybody to suicide, but I mean that's over a 97%, 98% success rate in that sense. So what they're doing is working, and what they're doing is being recognized. In 2017, the same year I went through, they won the VA Brain Trust Award for innovations in PTS treatment. And so the VA was kind of like, oh, well, this might be working. So for me, it was an amazing experience. I was on a weekend, and I'd called a friend that I usually trusted when things kind of got dark for me, and he had went through previously, I think it was the year before, and he would always tell me, you should apply. And I think what resonates with a lot of us is I'm fine. I don't need that. There's more people that need it more than I do.
Yeah.
I've figured it out this far on my own. What do I need something like that for? And finally one night he just told me, he's like, look, I don't have anything else for you. He's like, I don't know what else you want me to tell you. This is what you need to do. And so I applied, and they offered me a seat literally within a couple hours. And I was on a plane that Friday to Kentucky when they were running programs there in Kentucky. And I was a little nervous and a little scared at first because going into a complete unknown, and you got to talk about feelings, and that's something we're not accustomed to.
Oh, so, yeah. Well, we drank those feelings away. We're right, all in recovery here, so yeah.
We numb them away. So I got there, and it was an incredible experience. It was 5.5 days, and they ran us through various different things. I mean, without giving all the secrets away, but there was some equine therapy involved. There was some ropes courses involved, and then there was a lot of metaphorical reference to tangible things that you could attach emotion to and kind of let go of it. I think one of the most powerful moments for us is they do kind of it's like a Spartan practice where you burn off kind of some things that you've been holding, and they hold it in a ritual kind of ceremonial kind of way. And I had never felt, so free in my life, being able to just kind of let go of things that I had held on to, both from my childhood and then obviously things that happened when I was in the military. So it's a free program to veterans and first responders. The only costs associated are getting there. So if there's barriers to that too, definitely, reach out to them. I'm sure that they could work with you and get you there. And so they're in Newark, Ohio, which is east of Columbus. They're actually running a first responder. Jackie's running a first responder conference there in Columbus today. Actually, I think it started today. So, and then their other location is down in Malibu, California. And I ended up in Kentucky. I was like, oh man, I could go to Malibu. I gotta go to Kentucky, but fortunately, it worked out. It was great. I enjoyed the experience there, and then it's all warrior led, and so I was able to come back and take another group of guys through that following, I think it was that spring cohort. I went as cohort 4-4, and then I took cohort 4-3 or 5 through 5-3 as a shepherd. So that's where I was kind of just helping the guys get through the program and more or less was holding space for them. But I was able to go to Malibu and I was like, wow, this is an incredible experience. So yeah, it's an incredible program, you know, and they're creating ripples in the system, and they're challenging the status quo of the suicide epidemic, and they're offering a tangible solution to fix it through this like integrated intensive experience
Nice.
that they've set up. So
sounds really interesting. You have a lot to offer, right, Andrew? We're going to take a quick break. Friends in Recovery podcast, answering the call. We'll be back in a short time with our guest, Andrew Collins.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. The First Responder Recovery Program at Genesis House is led by a doctorate-level therapist with direct professional experience as a first responder himself. Treatment modalities focus on psychiatric care, relapse prevention, stress management, and trauma-informed care for PTSD. Learn why their individualized approach makes a difference for first responders. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Friends in Recovery podcast, answering the call. And I'm Mike Miles, the Podfather. And I got Jersey Ed.
Jersey wise ass Ed.
Jersey pain in the ass Ed. And I try to do this show alone. They won't let me.
Yeah, no, I just keep coming back. And, you know, we did forget somebody.
And we did forget our producer extraordinaire.
Forgot all about me, guys.
That's right. We got we got Sweets from Sweet Studio here.
It's because I'm behind the scenes.
That's right.
I mean, you can't actually see me, so out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah,
you have a good-looking man.
You're not even there. We don't even see you over
That's right.
there, so.
That's right.
But we have our guest, Andrew Collins. He's a U.S. Army combat veteran, and we were talking earlier about some of the programs that he went through on his own to get everything back in order. Hey, Andrew, I had a quick question. What was your MOS?
I was 11 Bravo, Airborne Infantry.
Airborne Infantry, of course you were.
Hey, Mike, hey, Sweets, what was your drug of choice? I have no idea what an MOS means. Me and Sweets are in the civilian world, so.
Boy, that's quite an accomplishment right there. So you definitely are an overachiever, Andrew. Wow, Airborne Infantry, that's amazing.
And Mike, what was your MOS?
I was a 95 Bravo, which was a military police officer.
Wow,
nice.
See, we learn something new every day.
So we were talking about some of the programs you went through to get healthy, and you sound so good. So you're really giving a lot of credit to these programs you went through. So it must be nice for the people that indoctrinated you and got you involved in these to hear someone like yourself come out the other end with a healthy attitude.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my people won't recognize me, and I meet people today, and they're like, "Are you sure you sure there was something going on?" It's like, hey, I put in the work, I put in the time, and I think that's right. That's the biggest thing that anybody that's listening right now, if you are in a hole, the reality is you can get out of it, but you have to make the personal choice first to do it, and don't be afraid to make that call, because there is help out there, and there are people out there that actually do give a shit about you and want you to actually succeed in life and not be stuck in this hole.
That's right. Your bio is so interesting. It looks like you're going forward as well. You're going to get an MSW, a Master's in Social Work.
Yeah, I'm in my first year right now, my generalist year, and then I'll probably go the addictions and trauma route, just so that I can continue to give back in that context. And I think that's the one thing that really was hit home with us through Saber Warrior, is that they really preach this selfless service and service to others as a piece at the end of it. The biggest contributor to serving other people is taking care of yourself so that you can be fully present for other people.
Correct.
And when I realized that, I was like, okay, I can do that, and I have done that. I've taken some phone calls before. I actually took one a couple nights ago for a guy that's just kind of struggling right now, and I realized my experience was only going to take me so far, and so it's like, I should probably get some schooling behind that. And so the plan is to eventually be done, and I think it was 3,000 hours to get your C for clinical social work. So I'll at least at least start getting licensed, and then
Right.
hopefully we'll go from there and be able to continue to make an impact.
And that's something you guys have in common, Mike.
Yeah, we have a lot in common, Andrew. I was about 14 years sober. I went back to school. I got my master's in social work, and I'm also a licensed alcohol drug counselor. Licensed,
Oh, wow, okay.
yeah, and I'm a licensed child and family divorce counselor. And I just picked up all these licenses along the way because the work I do, a lot like you're going to be doing, is helping other people. But if I hadn't got sober, there's no way I would have anything that I have today. And there's nothing better for me than to have someone come up to me or call me or send me an email or a text and saying, hey, my life is so much better because of the time, I spent with you. And I don't take the credit. Like you said, you're doing the work, and it is a lot of work. Getting an MSW is not as easy as it sounds. It's a lot of work. But boy, my hat's off to you. And if I can be of any help to you at all, I'll make sure you have all my contact information as you're going through this program.
I appreciate that.
Andrew, real quick, you said you were almost 2 years in recovery, and you and I were talking during the break a little bit about recovery. But how did SAW Save a Warrior? Did it enhance your program? Did it enhance your life, your recovery life? Speak a little bit about how SAW and recovery seems like it can go hand in hand.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the core principles that SAW teaches is that so they teach that the program itself is the temporary cure. You're going to come for a week. You're going to get some tools that could potentially benefit your life. But if you're not willing to do the work after the program, then you're just going to go back to where you were before. So they preach the cure is these community-based programs, whether it's Al-Anon, AA, ACA, Narcotics Anonymous, Sex Anonymous, etc. And so they do a really good job of setting that up and getting the light bulbs go off in your head. I had kind of danced around with the idea and was trying to actually quit drinking. By AA standards, I was more or less a dry drunk, but I was definitely on that slippery slope of becoming a full-blown alcoholic because I was using it to sleep. I was using it to manage pain. I was using it to just kind of numb my way through life.
And so was that due to all your war and your military? Is that what kind of brought that on, all that PTS and?
I think it was compounded. I think it was not only the military. I think it was also my childhood stuff. But as you guys, as you know, the military and especially in the police force, alcoholism and alcoholics is that's how we deal with things, and it's bred into the culture, and it's a way of life for that. And I think that some of it, again, like I said, was my childhood stuff that I came into that with, and so I think it was a perfect cocktail, if you will, to set me up for more or less failure. And had I not gone through the program, and I had realized that there were services within my own community that could help me kind of turn that corner, really, I don't think I would have got one to where I'm at now, but two, through the last that little bit after the program. I think the program that I'm in now that I think I draw the most and have healed the most through is ACA, which is Adult Children for Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And you go through the laundry list on there, and it's like, yep. And so
Yeah, I've been there.
it's an interesting concept of, these programs are out there, but it's, anonymity obviously is the biggest thing with a lot of them, but I think that we need to start talking about them and letting people know that, hey, there's things out there that are right out your back door or your front door.
Absolutely.
The one thing, Mike, and I always say it on the other show, is that AA is wonderful, but the bad part of AA is the anonymous part. Of course, I understand I can't say that you were there, but I wear my recovery on my sleeve as well as Mike does and Sweets does. Everybody knows that we're all three of us here are in recovery, and that's the hardest part because, and we always talk about this, that they all knew when we were drinking and using, but
right.
why don't you want everybody to know that your life is better? You're not drinking, you're not using. So, but listen, it's a personal choice. My personal choice is to talk about it to whoever I can, because you never know who you're going to, kind of help in the way,
There were several. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, you never know. I think that anybody that comes into our life is a teacher. If you're willing to look and observe it, why is that person in my life right now? And I think that, like you said, Ed, being able to talk about it, you never know. That might be the last drop they needed in their bucket that day to actually realize, okay, I do need to go get help.
Yeah.
There were several years when I had to drive the police wagon, AKA the paddy wagon, but we can't say that anymore. It's not politically correct to talk about the Irish that way. But so when I drove the police wagon on early nights in Lowell back in the 80s, there was a lot of arrests. There was probably about 12. I'd say we'd average 12 arrests a night, which meant 12 people would be arrested, put in the wagon, taken to the station, booked properly, and I had to handle each and every one of these people individually. Some of them were combative. I got spit on, kicked. I've been in more fights than I'd like to mention. But my point is, as much as I despise going to work every night, when I look back on it, that 3-year block of driving that wagon really gave me the serenity and the ability to help others that I have today. And it was because I was sober then, and I was, even though newly sober, I learned a lot, and I learned that I didn't want to go back to that, or that my bottom wasn't that much of a bottom compared to some of the people that I was trying to, restrain and take into custody.
Yeah,
it's like a veil. The veil gets pulled back, and you just have this clairvoyance and this clarity of mind and thought, and you see things differently. And I think it just helps you not only, like you said, being able to help other people, but I think it just helps you be more present in your life for the people that you care about, whether it's your friends, your family, pets, whatever. You're more clearly there for them.
Yeah. Andrew, we have a couple minutes left here, and I want to see if this is a correction from before, because we're gonna play back the tape, but maybe you can clear it up. You said the program is tape, yeah, because we got a satellite and tape, and you said I'm an '80s child. Come on. You said the program is free. Is that correct? Like free at no cost. You kind of brushed over that.
Yeah, so the cost associated with it is just travel. But if there is an issue with travel, just reach out to them, talk to them about it. I've heard of them potentially helping people before. It's worth reaching out to them and say, hey, what can be done? If you're in Idaho, I'll drive you. Just
he told that in his story trip at the conference. He drove many people over there.
And so it's so that's the only cost associated. But as far as the program itself, the 5.5 days, we're talking food, we're talking lodging, programming, all free. And it's all paid for by donors. And so it's an incredible,
amazing.
Incredible offering.
You're an amazing young man, Andrew, and you probably don't feel like a young man, but to me, you definitely are a young man.
He looks like a young man.
You are a power of example. You got a hell of a beard. That's one of the best. This is why I don't grow a beard. My beard wouldn't even come close. But you are truly a power of example, and the direction you're going in, you're going to help. You're probably helping people right now. I know just listening to you, it's amazing. Would you agree, Ed?
100%. It's
unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just fascinated just listening. And if people want to reach out, how can they reach out to you and the SALT program, and just give us your contact information before we let you go here?
So Save a Warrior is saveawarrior.org. So SAVEA Warrior, WARRIOR.org. They're on Facebook. You can look at them up that way, and they can send you messages. I'm on Facebook as well. If you guys wanted to share I got my email. You guys could put out if you wanted to. And they can contact me that way. And then, if there's anything that I can do, whether it's trying to figure out resources in your area for you, or even just talk to you, I'm definitely there and do what I can to help you.
Andrew Collins, can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast.
And thank you for your service, Andrew. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for what you guys do.
Look forward to talking to you again, Andrew.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, Mike,
what a great guest.
Oh my God. The guests are just amazing. I sit here and just in awe of all our guests week after week, like the things you guys do, the first responders do out there. It's just amazing. It's so individualized what each person goes through, and like Andrew being in recovery and then getting into this, having other issues in his life, and just getting into this Save a Warrior program. I mean, and on top of it all, it's free. They're helping these people for free.
Right. What I liked about Andrew's was he referred back to his childhood several times, and he didn't say, because of the service or the armed services, this is what caused me to have this. And I think a lot of people realize once you're in therapy, you start realizing, hey, this is who you are. This is the culture you were brought up in. This is why you are where you're at. Yeah. And, when you come to the reality that you can get help for the specific problem now, but you have to go backwards a little bit because you really do have to change, and you do have to understand why you are where you're at.
Yeah.
You know, at that stage in your life.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it really
Sweets, you and I are civilians, and we don't have the war or the police department to say, okay, these were our problems. But
Right.
like Mike was just saying, you know, it's not just the police department that put the problems on. It's not just the war that put these problems on. As you and I know, and as Mike knows, we grew up fucked up too.
Oh, yeah.
We grew up in a fucked up family. You know, he said ACOA and Al-Anon. You know, you go one of those meetings. I'm sure we've all been to one. They're fascinating. How fucked up. You don't realize how, you know, where you came from, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So I know we're always saying it's because of this, because of that, but the police, what you're seeing, but it is a little bit more than that. It's a little bit deeper, way back, you know, and we can attest to that as far as you know, recovery goes. So any thoughts on our guest?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that I'm in recovery and I'm in this industry now, and I'm in this industry to help other people because of my own experience. And so to hear, you know, Andrew getting back into this for his own experience and to be a peer that can support others going through what he went through, I mean, that's what this is all about.
Absolutely.
Most of the best people I know in this industry are people who went through it themselves, and now they're coming back and they, you know, went to school, got the training, got the certification, whatever was necessary, so they could start these programs. You know, that Saber Warrior program, I mean, that obviously came from somebody who went through this and now wants to make sure, like, you know, I'll pick you up, he says.
Exactly.
You know, I'll pick you up and bring you there. Like,
He will.
That's the type of thing that you need to know, is that you're not alone. There's other people out there that went through what you went through, and that's where these programs are born. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is
It
amazing.
really is.
Yeah, and you know, we're blessed to have like folks like us and you know, in recovery. You know, you do, when you get into recovery, I don't care who you are. I know I wanted to help somebody. I knew that big box store wasn't my life to do that, you know, serve up nails and you know, paint and all that stuff. That was, I mean, that was helping people in a way, but I knew there was a greater calling for me.
No doubt.
And as far as you, Mike, did you feel the same once you got to recovery?
Absolutely.
Because you were a police officer when you got into recovery.
Absolutely. I was about 5 years. I was a cop for about 5 years. The only way I got help. So I spent the last 30 years of my career, about the last 30 years sober, you know, and really understanding life. But I got to say, the first 5 years were a lot of fun. You know, it was a job that I didn't call in sick much because I didn't want to miss a night. I had a great time, but I wasn't really watching out for myself, you know, and I think very few people do. I don't know any, and I know hundreds of cops. I don't know any cop that's come on this job and gone completely 35 years. That's the amount of time basically you need to get a retirement. And in Massachusetts, you have to have 31 years of service with and be 55 years old. Then you're eligible for your full retirement benefits. And I got to say, about 13% of the people that start out in this career make it. So I feel very fortunate to have come that far. The average life expectancy of a white male is about 79 years old, and the average life expectancy of a white police officer is 59. So just think of that. There's like a 20-year gap there because of the job. Yeah. And whether you like it or not, it's factual. I don't care how healthy you think you are physically or mentally, this job will take its toll. You know, it's like a termite. It's from the inside out. It just starts eating at you.
Yeah, and yeah, I can see that. But you know, with recovery and Saber Warrior, the SALT program, you know, we can add years onto the first responders' lives. It's amazing, like all the new therapy out there and what can happen. So if you're listening and you need help, reach out. There's phone numbers all over the place. Genesis House number. If you're watching us on YouTube, it's up there. I know, Mike, you always give out your number.
I do.
You know,
I do. And,
give that out.
Yeah. My office number is 978-459-4884. That's therapy services, 978-459-4884. And just real quick, you know, there are police and fire, and we all eventually try to help each other. But you and Sweets, you know, a good example, a power of example to me, to see what you guys do behind the scenes to help people and to get the educations that you've had to obtain. And, you know, all the travel you do, Eddie, back and forth. It's amazing to me. You know, I'm not a traveler. I don't like flying. But, you know, pat yourself on the back a little bit. And Sweets over here, I mean, the guy's, you know, he's got so much ability and knowledge. I'm embarrassed. I don't even know where to begin, you know.
Come on, you guys are the show.
Look at the studio we got here, and we're getting the message out. That's what's important.
Yeah, and Sweets is helping us do that. Even this podcast, even us talking, this is helping people. This is not
Sure.
just just a thing on the internet.
Sure.
And this is a message. This is another message, another vehicle we can get that message out to help these people like us. If this was 20 some years ago, we would be probably listening to this and hopefully getting, getting
we'd be
recovery.
making mixtapes.
We would be
passing them out to our friends.
That's right. Mixtapes of answering the call. So
This is a form of catharsis, and catharsis goes way, way back. When humans began to speak, to talk about your own issues and concerns, it helps me to help you.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about helping, and in AA, the anonymity and all that, and I understand it, but I also understand that the 12 steps of recovery, and the 12th step is giving back what you got, because if you don't, you're not going to keep it. This is a gift.
Yeah.
Sobriety is a gift. There's no one special has this because they're special.
Nope.
We get sobriety because we work hard to get it. Once we get it, for us to keep it, as we all know, we have to give back.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sweets, give us your information too for somebody can get a hold of you, because you do work with the first responders as well as civilians and the first responders' families too.
That's correct. Yep.
So give us, we're giving out information. Miles, to get yours out there too.
Yeah, so that's Bay State Recovery Services. So we're located in Beverly, but we work with families and individuals all across the country. And that's baystaterecovery.com. And our phone number is 1-800-270-2302.
And of course, Genesis House, who sponsors the show. It's all this information will be in the show notes, of course. And their phone number is 800-737-0933. And quite a show today there, Podfather.
Quite a show. And I got to say, Genesis House, again, talk about people that want to help. The staff down there are just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's about it for today.
That could be it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
So, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
So this is the Podfather saying, join us for future episodes by subscribing and help us spread the word by sharing across social media. A special thank you to our sponsor, Genesis House, for making this possible, along with our producer, Sweets, in the Sweets Podcast Studio in Beverly, Mass., for recording and broadcasting this podcast.
And what a lovely studio it is.
It is.
And if you have any questions, or you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you want to submit a question or a question for topic for discussion, please visit the Facebook page at Answering the Call, First Responders Podcast, or send me or any of us an email at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. We're always checking. We're always answering the emails, and just be patient with us. We get hundreds of emails a week, and we'll get to you and hopefully get these topics on the air.
That's right. And as always, we are grateful for the privilege to share our stories and insight with you, the listener.
Stay safe, everybody.
That concludes this episode of Answering the Call, the First Responder Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for sponsoring the show and supporting our first responders who are struggling with addiction and mental health. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you are interested in becoming a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com.